Woohoo!
Hello, hello,
What's
hello.
up,
How are
man?
you today, Mr. Josh Weidman?
I'm doing great. It's Wednesday. We got hump day. We're ready to rock and roll. And I clapped. I did it.
No,
I
it's all
did
right.
it.
No worries. Hey, so really exciting stuff happening on Saturday. You want to get registered because if you get registered, you will have access to. If you get registered and show up, there's going to be a lot of really great stuff that we're talking about. The no
With
gold in notes event on Saturday.
okay.
Note school / BGRES Build and Grow with Real Estate Show. This is the Build and Grow with Real Estate Show. My name is Judah Hoover. This guy over here is Josh Weidman. I'm a
Yeah.
realtor. He is a hard money lender. By the way, Josh, did the guy I sent you last night call you? I sent
What's it?
you a guy.
Is it
It's
for
not
Western
Bank
PA deal?
Yang, but it's something like that. It's like
Yeah, I
a
spoke to him. I spoke to him. I looked at it last week. It doesn't. It's outside of our coverage area, and he doesn't have enough experience
right.
for it's in Western PA where we have a partner. So
Gotcha. All right.
yeah,
Well, I was thinking of you, buddy, and
appreciate it.
somebody called me because they said if anybody knows how to get a hard to get done deal, it's Judah. And I was listening to this deal, and I told the guy, I was like, listen, actually, I've been out of the lending world for 15 years. It's just or 10 years. It's just that I know everybody and know how to get deals done. So that's why I sent them in your.
Judah, this is kind of a crazy situation because I talked to this lender. So this guy has a broker, right?
Mhm.
Um, Really crazy scenario. His broker found a lender to lend on the deal 6 to 8 weeks ago. Okay. He's buying this from an extended family member where they're not really related, but it's like, you ever have that person that you
Yep.
called auntie? Like she's
I
not your
got
aunt.
I got I got Uncle Carl in my life,
Yeah.
and he's not an uncle, and I got a lot of people like that in my life. Yep, I love it.
So this guy has a ton of cash.
Mm-hmm.
Ton of cash. He
He's got
could
like
buy
500 grand cash in the bank, and he wants to buy this house for 350, and it's worth 370, but he only wants to put like 20% down,
right. Well,
and he can't verify his income, and his credit is kind of sketchy.
well, so here's the thing with the sketchy credit. His identity was hacked. And like
Right.
it's not like, the person that's got $50 in their account, they're like, "Oh, somebody hacked my account. Now it's negative 150." This guy has legitimate proof that
Right.
somebody stole his identity and opened accounts under his name and did all this stuff like, extensive.
It's just gonna take a year to get it all cleaned up.
Exactly.
It's
And
a
and
year
that's
into it. It's going to take another year to make it all go away.
so lender comes in, his broker gets this lender, the lender comes in, they're like, "Yeah, we're going to close on Tuesday." So Monday night he gets a phone call. "Hey, sorry bud, we have the wrong doc set. I need new docs." First time it happens, he's like, "Hey, no big deal. We'll get it straightened out." Calls his auntie or, relative, "Hey, can you give me a couple days? We just have to resubmit the paperwork." No problem. Four start stops later, he
Yeah,
decides,
he said settlement's been pushed off 4 different times now.
right, four different times. I'm talking to him last night. He's like, "Listen, I'm just embarrassed." He's like, "These people think I must be a deadbeat." Meanwhile, it's like a lakefront property in a very desirable resort area and stuff like that. And frankly, if it was in Central PA or the Poconos or Northeastern PA, we would be funding it today.
Right.
I mean, it
It's just that
just
it's out in the Pittsburgh area, not really your area. That's why
well,
I was like, I'm not sure.
it just is, we have a different criteria because of
Right.
our group of lenders out in that area and our partnerships out there. So it's just, it's not in our backyard. I'm not gonna put eyes on it. So, and anyway, long story short, it's a shame, but it's crazy some of the things that I'm seeing both in the lender world and it's amazing the scenarios that you run into as an investor. It's
Well,
like,
you need to trust your lender. Don't go getting properties under contract that you can't actually close on if you're not sure that you can. Don't put hard money down, meaning, not hard money like you, but like a deposit that goes hard if you
right.
can't actually back it up. And this guy, unfortunately, he might get burnt. But I threw the Hail Mary pass in it to you, thinking you might
No,
get in.
I really appreciate it. I didn't mean to divert the conversation here, but
No, I think it's good. It's good. It's a good lesson for everything that we're talking about.
yeah. So, all right. what do we got today, Judah? What are we talking about
Well,
today?
kind of yesterday we talked about things to worry about, things to be concerned about, downsides of the things that they won't tell you in the pitch meeting for participating in a real estate syndication deal. Today we're going to talk about all the reasons why you might want to participate in a real estate syndication deal.
And there are a
And
lot.
and there are a lot, and I think that one of the things that we don't have mentioned in our slides, but like this guy with this fishing pole kind of reminds me of, is one of the things that participating in a real estate syndication deal allows you to do is it allows you to up the number of units that you've participated in.
Yeah.
So I say I did a 342 unit deal in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Guess what? I invested my money into it. Now, I was able to pull together some money. I was looking to sponsor a deal. I found a deal that was looking for money. And so I switched from being the sponsor of the deal to putting money into a deal.
Yeah.
But I ended up being the limited partner on it. But I learned so much from it. And the first thing that I learned is how it gave me the ability to say that I've done more deals. It upped my experience level. It upped my credibility level. The second thing that doing that deal did for me was I learned so much. I learned what it takes to be a part of a $2 million construction project. Half my family is farmers and the other half is in the building trades. I know construction inside and out, like under $500,000, under $150,000. I learned a lot. And construction at 2 million is totally different than construction at $500,000.
Yeah.
So I learned a whole lot there. And then I would say the third kind of intangible thing that we're not going to get into in these slides that I really learned was also the people that I got in touch with. It upped my sphere of influence. Robert Kiyosaki says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. That's kind of scary because my 4 kids are probably the 4 of the 5 people I spend the most amount of time with. So I would say that anything you can do to get around bigger, better, smarter people is very important. People always say that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So number one, I think that it ups your credibility, ups your experience, ups your bragging rights, and that's a really cool thing. And number two, you learn a lot in the process. Other ways that other people are doing deals, and there's Josh, you might tell me about a flip that you're doing. And because we're friends, you might even tell me more than you tell somebody at the RIA club.
Right.
But if we were partners on a deal, you would tell me even more than that. You know what I mean? So there's like acquaintance level knowledge of the inside of a deal, friends level knowledge of the inside of a deal, and then partners level knowledge of the inside of a deal. Even if you don't have control because you're a limited partner, when you participate as an LP in a syndication deal, your knowledge of everything that goes on just exponentially raises. And if you're paying attention, it can be a very beneficial process for you.
What you mentioned something that I want to circle back with on this in a second, but it's pretty crazy how you think about every aspect of your life. That rule of averages of like the 5 people that you're closest to. It's absolutely true in every aspect. If you hang out with people that exercise, guess what? I bet you go to the gym.
Right.
If you hang out with people that are very spiritual, I'll bet you are too. I mean, it's just a default. People hang out with people like themselves. And a lot of times, I think we all forget that, if you want to change your life, you got to change your sphere of influence. You have to change your friends, and you have to do things differently than you're doing right now. If you don't like what you have, you got to change it.
Right.
That aside, on the knowledge factor, what's amazing is the difference between doing small single family not new construction, but renovation, and doing even small multi-units, 3, 4, 5 units. I always figured, like, you go from a single family home, like let's say a 6-bedroom single family home, and you want to convert that to a triplex or a duplex. Let's say the square footage is right. Well, you have everything on location, right? So the rough electric should be, probably 2.5 times for a 3 unit, as opposed to, 3 or 4 times. It would just make sense. But that's not true. The
Right.
bigger you go, you have to use different materials. The service cable alone goes from being, $200 for the entire cable to like $50 a foot,
Right.
as it
Yeah,
goes up.
I remember the first time I was doing a big project. It's actually funny because it's now the Lux building in Harrisburg, and I just got one of the rentals there to manage. But back about 10 years ago, it was an office building, and I was looking at buying it and turning it into office. It's like right beside the Capitol. I was posting pictures about it the other day on Facebook. And again, because I had my hard money fund, I was always looking at projects, and I was looking at rehabbing this property. And it was the first time that I had ever needed to quote out elevators. It was the first time that I ever needed to quote out electric on 3-phase electric. I did not know what 3-phase electric was until doing that project. So
Yep.
there was a lot. There's an awful lot that you learn by by doing that.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about some more concrete. I mean, those are kind of some intangibles. Here's some tangibles. The first is lower minimum investment. So this sounds counterintuitive, but if you really start thinking about it, let's think about it like this. There's two aspects to this. Number one, not all funds are going to require this huge investment. A lot of times, because it requires an accredited investor status, a lot of funds, they'll have a $50,000 minimum or $100,000 or $500,000 minimum just to buy in on these larger investment deals. Because frankly, investor relations, it takes time, it takes effort, but not all of them. There are plenty of funds that are like crowdfunding type deals where you can put in as little as $5,000 on these deals. So you can get into a larger project for much less money.
Yeah, I've been the sponsor on two different syndication deals where we only required one was like a $2,500 minimum investment, and what was funny is like my minimum investment was like $2,500, but then I didn't take any investment that was like less than 10 or 15 grand. I think was the
Right.
smallest buy-in that I had, and then I had one that was at 5 grand as well. So, and only like one or two people bought in at 5 grand. Most people bought in at 10 or 15 or 20. So sometimes that can be something. If you're looking to put together just a small syndication where you're looking to raise, 250 to $500,000, you can set it a little bit lower so people feel comfortable talking about it, and then they raise their level of investment.
Exactly. The other side of that is that a lot of times larger deals, a lot of times there's an advantage to investing in these type of properties because there's less competition. When you're talking about a $20 million development project, number one, there are very few people that actually know how to do that kind of work. Number
Right.
two, the people that are buying that type of deal are going to use the same type of evaluation, right? And so number three, there's less competition, and the profits for those type of deals are often going to be bigger. I mean, let's face it, if you have one unit and you're increasing the rental rate in one unit by $500 a month, that's what an added value if you're looking at cash flow of like $60,000, right, on the asset. But if you have 500 units and you can increase it $500 a month, that's $25,000 a month.
Right.
It's got a much bigger return on investment. And yes, your slice of the pie might be much smaller, but instead of maybe a 10% return, you're targeting 25 or 30%. And so if something goes wrong, you're only making 18% on your money. And so that's a much different situation as well, when it comes to that lower minimum investment. Right.
Yeah, I got to tell you, after I did that 342 unit deal in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it changed my world. Changed my life, changed my outlook, and I decided from that point forward I was going to go big or go home. and I've really only tried to participate in consequential deals of magnitude since then.
Yeah. All right. So number 2, diversification. All right. Now, again, just like the last one, there's 2 types of diversification we're talking about here. Number 1, let's say you have $100,000 to invest, and you've got a choice to either spend that on a C or D class property in a northeastern metro area to buy, renovate, and and burr the whole project, right?
Right.
Or you can take 50,000 of that and invest in an A class apartment building in Tampa, and another 50,000 invest in a B class commercial space in Atlanta. Now you're in 2 different markets. Number 1, you are spreading you're diversifying your investment over 2 different property classes. And then number 3, most of these deals are larger. So if you have, again, even if it's 5 units as opposed to 500 units, if you have 5 tenants paying your mortgage payment and one of them decides not to pay, there's a lot less of an impact there than if you have one tenant in one property that decides not to pay. I mean, that's a very
Right.
risky.
All you need to know about how, so people usually use diversification when they mean safety or risk adverse or risk avoidance, those types of things. And there's a reason why apartment complexes trade at a lower cap rate than single family homes.
Yeah.
So single family homes and in a lot of the areas that people are buying in right now, they might trade at 9, 10, 11%. It's funny. 5 years ago, they would be trading at 13 or 14%, some of those same houses. So, but cap rates on apartment complexes are 6s and 7s, 5s sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
so
I've seen 3. I've seen
yeah,
3% and people chasing 3% cap rates. It's
right.
it's pretty astounding. Yeah.
People need a rate of return for their money, and they're also looking at appreciation, forced appreciation by doing the work. So it's not as much on cash flow as it is the appreciation of what that deal is going to do. So yeah, I mean the cap rate being smaller at these larger properties, that's how you quantify the risk no matter what the property is. So if you're looking at, just really quickly, if you're looking at a $100,000 property, or you're looking at a $300,000 property, and you want to say for the dollar which property has a greater risk associated with it, maybe it's the $100,000 one, maybe it's the $300,000 one. But what you do is you just figure out the cap rate on each one, and whichever one has a lower cap rate is a lower risk investment. So typically, when you look at these syndication deals, they have a low cap rate on entry and certainly a low cap rate on exit, for compared to single families or small multifamilies. Multifamilies under 4 units that are going to be in whatever your backyard is.
Yeah, and part of the exit strategy with a lot of these larger multifamily properties, they're going to look at what what the market says about cap rates, right? I mean, in some areas, I mean, CD or even secondary and tertiary markets, the right cap rate might be at 8%, and that certainly could be the case. But then you go into like Manhattan, if you get a 1% or 2% cap rate, man, you're cooking with gas. Like
Right.
that's a really valuable property. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. So you got to look at the market there. But all right. So last but not least here, this is kind of a 2-parter. We talked about this yesterday, is passive. Look, once you invest in these things, you're out.
Right.
You don't have the right to have a ton of involvement unless that's set up beforehand. Excuse me. But even if you and in some ways that can be a detriment, but in others it can be a real benefit. Like if you ever manage your own rental properties, like it's not the worst thing in the world, but man, it's not fun when you get midnight phone calls and they always come at midnight or like 4:45 on Friday afternoon. And hey, my water just got cut off, or there's a problem here, a problem there. you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Right. I have a friend who is in the turnkey business, and he always tells people, it's not as passive to own real estate as everyone makes it sound.
Yeah,
It should be called near passive investing or something like that.
I think it's
Because if you own, even if you hire a manager, you are still not a passive investor.
yeah,
It's not like buying a Subway franchise, you know what I mean, and showing up every day, or having a business manager show up every day and manage that. It's not like a lot of other side hustles you can get into that there might be, but owning rental real estate is not truly passive income. But when you are a limited partner, it is much more passive. So it's like Subway franchise is going to require this much. Rental property is only going to require this much, but being a limited partner is going to actually require zero involvement. Now, you should show up at any meetings. You should be on any conference calls. You should ask questions. You should tour the site before, during, and after any construction that's going on, and take pictures, and add those to your credibility kit your credibility kit that you don't call a credibility kit, by the way. Those of you who are regular listeners know what I'm talking about there. So you should be involved, but it's okay if you're not involved.
right, right. I mean, obviously, you're going to read the statements, you're going to see where your monthly payments are coming from, all that kind of stuff. But most of the liability, and frankly, forget liability for a second. One of the major benefits here, and this is kind of a subtext of this limited partnership, is that you get to take advantage of a real operator with the GP a lot of
Right.
time. Is
Right.
that they've got this experience, they've done this before, they know how to raise the money, they know how to find a good deal, they know how to put the deal together and get it done. I mean, you're leveraging a little bit of capital against a ton of knowledge and a ton of opportunity that you certainly wouldn't have had with a $50,000 investment. So
Right. I think it's very important to participate in other people's syndications. If you are somebody who's going from flipping, a house or two a month, or a house or two a quarter, and you've built up some money, and you've got 10 or 15 or 20 rentals, and you're looking at making the switch into commercial, and how you've decided to make the switch into commercial is by syndicating multifamily properties, right? So there's a bunch of assumptions there. And I think that rather than starting out as being a sponsor on a deal, you should raise money for other people, or participate in raising money. Putting your money into somebody else's deal, because you don't know what you don't know until you learn it. And while oftentimes these sponsors and operators are very good, very sophisticated, operate at a very high level, and are good at what they do. And that gets back to one of the intangibles that we talked about. Not only are you hopefully going to learn a lot from these guys, but hopefully they're not going to make stupid mistakes that you would make. I always liked participating with sponsors. It's one of the reasons why I never minded when I was partnering with somebody else, either as a sponsor or partnering with somebody. Sometimes I like co-sponsor deals. I've done that a couple of times, where it looked like I was the sponsor, but really I was having somebody else be the sponsor. Or I've done other things. It saved me from getting in trouble. It saved me from making stupid mistakes, because I don't always know everything.
and sometimes you don't always know everything, Judah. That is something I'm going to clip that and make it a meme. I'm just going to have that point over and over and over again. Perfect. I mean, look, one of my favorite sayings is like, what I don't know is a whole lot bigger than what I do know.
Yeah, that's great.
Especially when you're doing it the first time. All right. So last and not least is shielded liability. Most of these are limited liability companies or limited liability partnerships. And as such, the GP is going to, the buck stops with them, the sponsor. So if there is a problem, if something falls apart, or there's, some liability there, it's not on you as the LP.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that's critically important. You want to never underestimate the power of being a limited partner, because if something does go wrong or something does happen, If a workman, gets hurt or injured, that's not on you. If the deal ends up going sideways and not making money, that's not on you. I think that one of the other things that we want to talk about here, just kind of as we wrap up, that we touched on before on Monday when we first started talking about these, but I just kind of wanted to wrap up our show a little bit with this. Is okay, so when you're looking at the financials for a syndication, and I know it depends on the project, I'm just trying to understand if it's a good idea. Should you focus on cap rate or equity, multiplier, anything else? It
I
all.
got an answer here. You go ahead. You give me. Yeah.
I was gonna say it all depends on the deal. It all depends on the asset class. If you're syndicating, a commercial building versus if you're syndicating something that is if you're syndicating the commercial building or multifamily. Also, which cap rate are you talking about? You're talking about the cap rate going in or the cap rate going out. That's one of the ways that you can really juice numbers and make them look a whole lot better. I've seen operators, especially during this phase in the market, know and understand, hey, listen, I'm buying at a 7 cap. I'm doing this, this, and this to improve my cash flow. And even if I sell at an 8 cap, they're a lot of operators assume that their cap rate is going to go down. But if you assume that your cap rate is going to go up when you sell because we might be in a different phase of the market, that's a way that you can tell that this operator is sophisticated and knows what time it is. I always look for little tiny clues that tell me this operator knows what time it is and knows where we are in the market cycle. Go ahead. You had something more to say about that.
All right. I hate cap rates so much. They're one of my least favorite parts of real estate because
You're a residential guy. I get it.
Well, you can hide a lot of crap in there. All right. Here's a perfect example. In May or June, I was underwriting a commercial deal in on the West Shore. Okay. And there were 3 properties. They were B+ to A grade neighborhoods. And this guy gave me all his numbers, right? And the numbers that he had for expenses were somewhere in the 25 to 30% range. And typically I figure 30 to 40% is probably about right until I talk to somebody, our friend here on Palmyra, who's been on the show a couple of times. Like, I talked to her about these projects. I said, look, here's the deal. What do you think? Her numbers, she said, look, if you have an aged property, your expense ratio should be somewhere between 40 to 55% because that's what they're going to use on a commercial mortgage. So we're talking about, a value that might have been for 3 properties like $4 million, and they were looking for a $2 million loan. When you change the expense ratio, now all of a sudden the properties are worth 1.2. You know what I mean? And like they're looking for a $2 million loan on 1.2 value. That's a big deal. I think a lot of the numbers that you're looking for, Chris, are I don't think you should look at one number. I think when you're looking at the deal, you got to consider the details in the financials. And when they say, okay, management costs are going to be 5%. Well, a 5% management cost might be appropriate, but it's probably not. You know, and if they're talking about on-site management, it's only going to be this amount, and they're going to use a handyman to throw things together. Look, handymen are the hardest things to find, especially right now where real estate is hot and construction is big everywhere. Like, you got to look between the lines and look at the details. That's my two cents.
And the only way you can do it. So one of the things that I tell people when they're getting started in real estate is go out there and walk 100 houses, walk 200 houses. You know what I mean? You just need to get out there in your neighborhoods and walk houses, walk houses, walk houses. Yeah, in 2000,
Chris owns a lot of real estate. I know Chris. He was on.
That's cool. So that's what you do when you're doing single family, right? Well, when you get into large multifamily, you need to just evaluate the numbers on 100 of these deals. Mm-hmm. You just need to, and I use like a pretty simple spreadsheet when I'm doing properties that like are 10 units and under. If it's more than 10 units, I use the same spreadsheet, and it's pretty big and it's pretty complicated. And I was amazed when I was putting together that deal in Tulsa, Oklahoma, it was like the 50th deal I had put together. But yeah, a 50% expense ratio, it's crazy
Right.
how ubiquitous that is. It's crazy how much properties, fall in line at that 50% expense ratio. So
Yep.
Anna was exactly right. So that's what you have to do, and I would just say that we probably need to spend another 10 to 15 minutes on how to evaluate a deal, knowing if it's a good, just high level. How do I know if this is a good syndication for me to get involved in or not? What are some red flags to look for? What are some things that I can check on? What are some ways that I can do that? We might not be able to do that tomorrow because of our guest, or Friday because of end of the news. So we might on Monday come back and talk and do that. We'll talk about that. But this Saturday, from 9 a.m. to 3:30, you want to get registered for Note School. You want to use our link, because I always thought, like, geez, when we were talking about, Josh, should we charge people for this and maybe run some ads and do like the self liquidation, like this will people will find out about, if we put value into the marketplace,
Sure.
people will find out about our show and we'll get more listeners. That's kind of what we were thinking. Put value into the marketplace, so we'll have a self-liquidating offer. We'll charge $5 to $7 to $10 or $15 for this, for registering here, and set up a squeeze page for that. And we decided to just get it out there to our listeners for free because we want you guys to have value. And we were talking with Brian Lochner, and Brian said that people who are also promoting this are charging $50 to $75 just to show up. So Josh and I are getting you access here for free to this. If you go to noteschool.com, BGRES. Note School is a company that I have worked with a lot over the years. It's funny, I just had something from my Facebook memory come up from the first time that I worked with them, like 4 or 5 years ago. So they're a great company. I've oftentimes promoted their stuff, and I highly recommend learning about notes, learning about creative financing, learning about the marketplace that is out there for buying non-performing notes, for buying performing notes, buying non-performing notes, and how to turn them into performing notes. There's so many great things that you can do out there in the note world. The note world is Josh's favorite way of making money in real estate, and it's my favorite way of making money in real estate. I've made money more in the note business than any other way of investing in real estate. And I just encourage everyone to check this out. Noteschool.com, BGRES, on Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3:30. It's going to be a virtual event, and you don't want to miss it.
Bring your own sack lunch. Enjoy, kick back in your underwear, but don't stream it.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so we're going to be back here tomorrow with Brian Lochner, and we're going to dig into some of the stuff that he's done for on the creative financing front. We're going to circle back with him. So we'll be back here at noon tomorrow. If you guys enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and share. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, go make some money, guys.
See everybody.
Peace.